Thank you for joining. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available on the city's website. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once all councilors have had the opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. Finally, the councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the end of the meeting, under the public comments section of the agenda. Anyone have conflicts before we go any further? All right, we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody look at Rick. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see, I have a proclamation first, and then Steve, I'll give it over to you for manager report. Whereas the city of Waterville strives to be a community that is welcoming and supportive of all of its members, regardless of race, gender, age, sexual orientation, and expressions. And whereas Waterville supports the legal non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ Mainers passed in 2005, is one of only 20 states in the nation to include protections for discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression in employment, housing, education, credit, and public accommodations. And whereas the Maine Pride Month is an opportunity to recognize the hard work and be supportive of the thriving Waterville LGBTQ community in fighting for their rights and acceptance, and acknowledge the ongoing work of citizens of Waterville to advocate for equal rights. And whereas the city of Waterville thanks the Health Equality Alliance and their volunteers and sponsors in the community for working incredibly hard to make Waterville an engaging and sustainable Maine Pride community. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jake Queller, Mayor of Waterville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June as the Maine Pride Month, and urge all members of our community to advocate for equality. Steve, I'm going to let it go to you.
You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 quick things to comment on and 1 important thing to report to you on. First of all, those who like color and like excitement, I encourage you to go to the airport or anywhere around the airport on Saturdays. There is a very active skydiving club out there and school, and it's quite a sight to see, the colored parachutes and the people jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. If you haven't noticed, and for everybody else in the city, the west side of Main Street from Temple Street to just about Spring Street has been torn up, and they're digging. They're down maybe 4 or 5 feet in depth at this point, working on rebuilding the base of Main Street. They'll do the same thing on the east side of Main Street once they finish the west side. When you look at the work that they're doing, you can see why this is going to take a while. On the brown-tailed moths, rather, I want to report that all the city parks and playgrounds have been equipped with signs, large, bright, fluorescent yellow-green signs that caution those who visit the parks and playgrounds about the brown-tailed moths, with the same information that we posted on the websites on these signs. And then finally, in conversation with the council chair today, it's been decided, I believe, that we're going to move the budget meetings from June 22nd to June 29th, and then July 6th for a second reading and adoption. The reason is that we are working diligently on nailing down all the numbers and putting together a sound recommendation with the Finance Committee. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and we don't want to rush into it and make any errors if we bring it to you on the 22nd.
And we're also waiting on the state to finalize their budget, which of course will affect our budget.
Mm-hmm.
Claude,
Well, we need a resolution to do continuous funding to get us past July.
Yes, sir. And that set of resolutions, I believe there's more than one. Those will be modified from last year and used again this year.
Okay. Do we need to do that tonight?
No.
We'll do it in the budget meeting on the 29th, Claude.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
that's it? All right. Do I have the consent agenda? The consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Patty, can I get a roll call on that?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Voted 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
I'd like to make a motion to take the agenda out of order to take up Resolution 147-2021 first.
Second.
Any discussion? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Patty, Tyler Frank is here to speak on this item.
Okay.
Can we bring him into the meeting?
Yes, we'll bring him right in. Reggie.
Thomas, do you want to make a motion to read by title only the entire agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Shall I do a roll call, Mayor?
Please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yep.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. So resolution 147, 2021 is accepting a proposal with garbage to garden and authorizing an expenditure.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Thomas.
So this is something I've actually sort of been working on for several years now to try to get this going in town. It's pretty simple. It was outlined in the proposal. This is kind of piggybacking on the drop-off site that we are launching on Thursday, I believe. So this is a one-time subsidy in this budget year to get a fee-for-service curbside composting program going in Waterville. This is something residents will sign up for. The city will pay for the first month. Garbage to Garden will match the second month free. Beyond that, residents will have to pay for the service if they want to continue. And the idea is to put $10,000 towards it, which would subsidize about 667 residents. And if people sign up, we spend the money. If they don't sign up, we don't spend the money. It should result in savings moving forward by removing the food waste from the waste stream from anyone who signs up, and also ease the burden on public works. And I see this as a step towards We've been working for a while now to possibly go to 4-day trash pickup to eliminate all the Monday holidays that Ward 1 gets whacked with. And so if we can free up some, remove some more things from the waste stream by getting people to pay to get rid of it instead, then it should ease the burden on Public Works. And Tyler Frank is here from Garbage to Garden if anybody has any questions for him about the service, the history of the company.
Anyone else? Councillor Foss.
Councilor Thomas, if I may, where's the $10,000 being derived from?
This would be out of the Public Works budget. And actually, one of the things I discovered as I was going through the budget is that we did not increase the revenue line for the trash bags, even though the price is slated to go up this year. And so the money would come from there, although ultimately we're going to save the money we invest because we're not going to be paying to get rid of the stuff that people are paying to compost. So it really should be a wash ultimately. If people sign up for this service and they stay with the service, we should save as much money as they're spending. And this is something that this is only for this year, the subsidy. So beyond this year, it's a fee for service. So once the business is up and going in town, it's the same as anyone paying someone else to pick up their trash. It means the city doesn't have to do it.
Okay. So the way I understand this is not going to be an additional $10,000 to the Public Works line. It's coming out of the Public Works line.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't know if Tyler wanted to say anything.
I'll get to Tyler. Councillor Green?
Well, I'd be happy to hear from him. This is a kind of related question. Just wondering if the pilot program, that's launching on Thursday, will continue if it's successful, because obviously that would be a free option for people to reduce their waste as opposed to paying. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think they complement each other well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 60% of trash is food waste. Am I not mistaken here? I mean, it's pretty high up there.
The food waste is the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So it may not be the volume, but it certainly is the heavy stuff in the bag for the most part.
And that will save us money in tipping fees when we do throw stuff out, and it'll be no different than people being able to recycle curbside and taking stuff over to shredding on site. Tyler, would you like to say something?
You're muted, Tyler.
You have to unmute.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, it's going to be pretty simple. I second what Eric was saying about the cost savings. By my estimates, it should be about, if someone stays with it for 6 months after, like if they pay for it for 6 months, then you're going to start to save money even beyond the initial 1 month subsidy. And we have a really good retention rate. And to the point about the consolidated collection, the free drop-offs, that's a great option, and they go hand in hand. We have a lot of communities where we do both. Like Bath is one where we have had drop-offs and curbside right from the beginning. South Portland, there's a number of communities where it works well because a lot of people want to pay a little bit of money for the convenience. Plus, they get finished compost given back to them for their gardens, and a clean bucket, which just keeps the whole thing, easier to adopt. But then other people want to save the money and use the drop-offs. So I think it'll go well hand in hand. All the messaging is kind of the same. You're just telling residents, hey, we want to recycle our food waste, and you have these two great options to use.
Councillor Foss and Councillor Klepak?
Questions for Mr. Frank, and just because I can't comprehend it. How do you keep animals out of that system?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, obviously animals want to eat your food waste, but we don't have a widespread problem with animals in bins. I know if you leave a bucket outside all the time, an animal might try to get into it, but the lids seal on pretty tight. So we just, it's a valid concern, but we haven't seen a lot of problems with this. I think a lot of people also keep their bucket inside their home. Like I keep it right under my sink or in my entryway sometimes. because it's clean when when I bring it inside, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. But if we have a bucket that's broken, or a lid that a squirrel has chewed on, we end up replacing those with the service each week. So yeah, we haven't heard residents say, geez, the animals keep getting into this. It's been doing
What about at your drop-off site?
Well, the drop-off site in Waterville is serviced by another company, I believe, maybe AgriCycle Energy. And I couldn't really speak to how they do it, but at our drop-off sites we use 64-gallon toter carts, and those have seemed to be animals haven't gotten into them, at least in like North Yarmouth, Maine, and Harpswell, and some places where there definitely are quite a bit of wildlife. So I don't anticipate it being a problem no matter how they do it. I mean, you don't really need locks because the totes are heavy enough that raccoons can't tip them over. So I don't think you'll have an issue really, as long as it's serviced frequently. So really the food waste and the smell is sort of like you want to put that bucket out every week, or it will start to get kind of gross. Just like if you keep your food in your trash bag and you don't put it out.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Klepak.
Hi, Tyler. What is this service going to cost an average resident on a monthly basis?
Yep. So we're going to use the exact same service offering that we've always had, and we offer in all our other communities, which is it's free if you volunteer, and we'll have partner with organizations that we can in the community to try to sponsor certain events, and it's $15 a month otherwise, and that covers weekly pickup, clean bucket every week, 2 buckets if you need the space, and then a bag of finished organic compost any week or every week that you request one. We also, one other thing you might be interested to know is we collect fats, oils, and grease. Like, you don't have a lot, but some people have fryers and they put the oil back into the jug, or you might have a jar of bacon grease that you fill up over a few months. And rather than throw that in the trash, if you put that on top of your bucket, our field operators collect them and end up consolidating that material. It goes to Maine Standard Biofuels, and they make biodiesel and soap that we actually use to wash the buckets. So that's a nice little add-on.
Anyone else with questions?
Paula Raymond's got her hand up.
Can we bring Paula in, and then
Yeah.
we can take it to a vote?
Paula, can you hear us? You're on mute. Did you have a question or a comment, Paula? Paula, you're muted. There you go.
There you
I
go.
apologize. I had to find me in the cache of people here. I apologize. Gary and I started doing this with the Winslow group because I was given a box, a container, and we really like it. And it has lessened our load in our trash every week, and it's much lighter too. So it's a great concept. I'm just starting to understand now, because I'm listening more to what the gentleman had to say, Tyler had to say. We do have options, though. We don't have to pay. We can bring it to a site and dump it ourselves, and we just won't have the luxury of having compost when we need it. So that's going to be an option for the people of the city of Waterville, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then if we want to buy in and do the $15 a month, that's when we can also ask for compost. And they just keep rotating the buckets. We put them outside and they rotate the buckets. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You put it out, and we envision this being on trash day. We always do it on the same day as your trash, other than maybe in the very beginning when there's very few people. But you put it out with your trash recycling, and then we swap it out. So you get a different bin back. It's one that's been washed, and so you don't have to deal with the ickiness of what it's like after it's dumped. And then
Right.
that's included if you request it. Not everybody is going to use it, so we have a lot to give back to those who are going to garden with it.
Sure. So just one more question as to when do we start and where do we drop it off if we don't want to invest in the $15 a month?
The drop-off site is going to be at iRecycle, Paula, and there should be a big rollout on that. And Rebecca actually probably has more details than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's this Thursday at 3 to 4 at the Mitchell School. There will be, our fine mayor will be there to make some presentations. They've got the green team there and lots of kids' activities, as well as information. And the first 20 people who show up and sign, I think it's some kind of recycling pledge, gets a free container to use. So get
Okay.
there early, and hope folks will support this, both programs. I have a question for Tyler.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Just on this topic, Tyler, is there a minimum for your program that we need to enroll?
Well, I mean, there certainly is a minimum for us to be able to cover our cost,
Mhm.
but we haven't really determined exactly what the number is, but we definitely anticipate exceeding that. I
Yeah.
think, one thing I could tell you is we have had about a 94% retention rate year over year, as most of the 6% who aren't still participants having moved out of the towns that we service. So people really do enjoy it once they start. And so I think if we give them this 2-month free trial, that's enough time to kind of get them hooked. And a few may switch to the drop off, but at least they'll still be composting. It'll be a good way to get them to do it. And, I think for us, we'll end up, my initial goal really is to surpass the 667 and get to 1,000 households. And I have every confidence that we'll do that, especially if we can work together to get the word out, to promote it to people, which, we can put some resources into, but some introductions would be helpful, and just some being included in messaging from the city would be really helpful in getting us to that point.
And Eric, I'm going to let you go, but I got a question. The service is $10, right? Not 15, or is it 15?
Well, we had batted around a couple ideas. One was to take the compost out of it and not include that for free, and also that we would charge, or maybe it was that we would charge $10 back when we originally suggested the city subsidize it $1. So we were each $5 off the price and provide a $5 for residents. So instead of so the $10 that maybe was discussed would have been us discounting our price to $10 if Waterville was able to spend $5 per month. So residents only paid $5 because we thought that would be just amazing. But definitely from the city. And so we were able to fund $10 for the same service right out the gate. We wouldn't be guaranteed having thousands of participants make up for the lower price point. But I think with that number, we were talking about bringing compost out of it. And what I can tell you is that everywhere, like in Portland and all the surrounding communities that we service, for all of them, it's $15 a month or free if you volunteer. And that includes the compost delivery weekly and the clean buckets. And that's been a very successful program.
I'm just worried about the residents that want to recycle their food but probably don't need the compost because they don't garden. But all right.
Well, they'll have the option of taking it and dropping it off to.
Yep, that'll work.
And there is, part of this too is us helping them promote the fact that this, obviously we have a vested interest in getting as many people as possible to sign up for this service. And I think it's perfect timing because we can piggyback on the promotion that's being done with the drop-off site. I mean, the two things go hand in hand. And I don't know if it would be appropriate to try to, maybe get some info out there on Thursday, but if not, we can start rolling out info as soon as possible, as soon as, Tyler can get us promotional materials to print up and whatnot.
I'll think about it. Any other questions or concerns? I don't see any of the attendees. Patty, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
It was 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you,
All
Tyler.
right.
Thank you very
Tyler.
much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to working with you. Have a great night.
You too.
All right,
Bye.
so we have the approval of the consent agenda, so we're moving on to unfinished business, which is order 130, 2021.
An order providing for authorizing an expenditure for downtown traffic barriers.
And Steve, this is just the planters that we ordered before. Rick?
That's correct.
Before I make the motion to accept, I don't have that in our agenda packet. Unless somebody can
Yeah.
point me in that direction.
I just discovered that. Go back to the shared location and go back to the last meeting.
Thank you.
I'm happy to read it if you'd like. I'd read it out loud for the.
Please, just so we can save ourselves time.
Of course. Be it ordered by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers as follows, that the City Council hereby authorizes the city manager to expend up to $25,000 present in the downtown TIF account to purchase and place decorative concrete traffic barriers in the downtown.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Olivera?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes,
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to ordinance 133, 2021.
An ordinance providing for amending Table 1 of the Building and Electrical Permit Ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Olivera?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
yes,
Council Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to ordinance 134, 2021.
An ordinance providing for amending the Animal Control Ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Claude, do you want to talk on this one?
just briefly, I had talked with the police chief who had relayed some concerns for the animal control officer, and also with the city clerk, because I had proposed being a lawyer, I had proposed a big long list of different ways to look at all different kinds of property. Anyway, to make a long story short, I decided that the simpler idea of just raising the limit to 4 for most of the city, but making a somewhat larger limit of 10 for rural residential areas was probably the easiest way to for the in terms of management of the ordinance. I did also want to make sure that we put in what constituted a nuisance in terms of any kind of dog, no matter how many you have. So those are the changes I made, and that's what's before us now.
Sounds reasonable to me. Anybody else got questions? Councilor Klepak.
I just had a few constituents from my ward raise concerns about having the limit go up to 10. Can you once again cover that? So remind me, it is 10 for rural residential, and how is that exactly defined?
Well, rural residential are those are much larger pieces of property. I think the minimum is you can tell me if I'm wrong, Patty, but I think is a half acre or so. It's enough space to have more dogs. Most of the rural residential are much larger pieces of property.
But it can be anything as little as a half acre, though, you're saying?
No.
Only if it's zoned rural residential. Most of your rural residential is going to be out by like Webb Road, Eight Rod Road. it's going to be in the outskirts of the city. In your ward, Ward 3, you're essentially going to be mostly residential, not rural.
Well, he's got some space. There's some space out on County Road in Ward 3 that is rural residential, but those are all large parcels of land. Talking with the clerk, I thought that was the easiest thing because it's obvious when somebody registers what kind of property they're, what the zoning is for the property that they're on. So it's and frankly, it's the nuisance issue is what's really, one dog can be a nuisance, 10 dogs could be perfectly acceptable. It just depends on. So anyway, that's my proposal.
Any further discussion? I don't see any attendees. Patty, can I get oh, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry. So right now it's 3 across the board, all zones, and we're now changing we're changing it 4 to some of them, and then 10. We're making the jump from 3 to 10 in rural residential because they have more space. Like that's the thought process behind 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, and larger numbers would kick you, as noted, as the clerk noted, would kick you into the business of being a kennel or a veterinarian, so that's larger numbers of dogs
Mm-hmm.
are envisioned in the zoning ordinance.
And are kennels and vets allowed in a rural residential currently?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Patty, can I get a roll call, please?
Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yes.
Councilor Green,
Yes, I didn't quite hear my name, but
oh, I'm sorry. I did say it, but Councilor
Okay.
Ross,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
And I'm sure my children are watching, so the answer is still no. We can't have that many dogs. All right. Moving on to Resolution 138, 2021.
A resolution providing for establishing a safe zone, 19 Colby Street.
Any discussion? This is the homeless shelter.
We didn't have a motion yet, Jay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Jump the gun.
I motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Mayor, if I may, I'll point out to the attendees that if they wish to ask questions or comments on any items on the agenda, they should simply raise their virtual hand, and we can give them permissions to be a panelist and speak and ask questions, and then we can reassign them back afterwards.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I got one attendee, but I'm going to give you counselors an opportunity first. Claude.
Well, the homeless shelter indicates that they frequently have children present, and that's the underlying reason for safe zones. So I think that's why they've asked for it. Absent compelling reason otherwise, I think we ought to go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, the police department's right there. That's also considered a safe zone, isn't it?
No, we didn't find any law in Maine that
Okay.
establishes that.
That's fine. Any other counselors before we bring in Edward? All right, Patty, can we bring in Edward?
Yeah. Mr. Duguay, can you hear us? I'm sorry, I think you're muted, sir.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Eddie Duguay. I was with you a couple weeks ago there, and still working with the client on 54 College Avenue, the former John Martin's Manor. I was just wondering if this is part of that, of this particular article on establishing a safe zone with 19 Cole Street. Is this the same or different?
It is, sir.
The same?
Yep.
Okay. So as I explained quickly a couple weeks ago, we have received the financing for the project, and we're still working between the two brokers right now, but we had done our due diligence with code to make sure the setbacks were okay, and that's when we kept moving along with the project to try to get it to where it is right now.
So, Mr. Duguay, I don't mean to cut you off, sir, but your group is still looking to purchase that property? Because I believe that, is there not another qualifying offer on June 30th?
There is, but there's a conflict of when the due diligence was being done between the broker and the broker that's representing us. There's a little conflict, but we think we can resolve that conflict, but we just want to make sure that this project was still alive as far as that address goes.
I don't think it will be
know
if the council votes for a safe zone, so we'll have to look at that.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. I just wanted to check in. That's all, my friend. Thank you very much.
So your intention is still to buy the building?
Yes, we had done all the due diligence. We received the finance to buy the building, but then there was a conflict between the two brokers on some timing of the benchmarks in the closing agreement. We're just trying to resolve that, but I didn't dare to not participate tonight. If we resolve it, then we're right back in a good spot. So we think we can resolve it.
Do we think that we should table this?
I would make a motion to postpone until the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
I would second that.
Patty, can I get a roll call on that?
Council Morris,
Yep.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Mr. Duguay, it looks like you've got a couple more weeks.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you so much.
Steve, I want to have a conversation tomorrow.
So do I.
I'm going to move on to the next thing right now. New business, which is Resolution 146, 2021.
A resolution providing for accepting the proposed process for performance review of the city manager.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Thomas.
I'd like to give a chance for Steve to make some comments, but we may want to, there's a lot of goals that we set out in this performance evaluation, and some of those are going to be difficult to achieve depending on the resources that we give Steve in the budget. So we may want to table this. Let's discuss it, see what people's input is, but we may want to table it and finalize it once we've actually finalized the budget. I think there are some things in there that are going to be difficult for him to accomplish, depending on what happens with the budget.
Councilor Frankie.
Well, it appears to me that the evaluation system that's been set up is a long-term, ongoing operation that will that's not dependent on a particular budget or time. It looks to me like with the amount of work that you folks put in to put this together, we should just go ahead and adopt it and start using it.
In general, I think you're right, Claude, most of it, but there are very specific goals in there for this particular year. And that's the one part that we may want to reevaluate depending on what happens with the budget. And I think we should let Steve weigh in since it is how we'll be evaluating him.
Councillor Foss, and then I'll go to Steve.
I can see both Thomas's and Frankie's points, whereas we're looking at additional staffing. Yeah, I would, some of that stuff is stuff he should be doing. Some of that stuff he's going to be allowed to do if the budget goes through with the additional staffing. So I would be in favor of tabling it till just after the budget vote.
Steve, would you like to talk before they decide to do that? You're on mute.
That mute button.
I don't have much to say on it. I've read through it. I've made a few comments. I've distributed those comments back out to the committee that worked on this. And I agree with what Eric is saying, that a number of the goals are dependent on funding in order to be able to bring them into the range of achievable. But at the same time, I agree with Claude as well that the general format of it and the evaluation criteria, aside from achieving the goals that are set out, are very repetitious, and they can be used time after time, and they're fine with me.
Councillor Frankie, and you are muted.
Just to make it clear that just because any manager at any particular in any particular evaluation doesn't meet any particular goal, doesn't mean that he's going to be fired. That's what I'm driving at. You guys have put together a really nice way of looking at the evaluation, and I think we ought to go ahead and put it into action there.
I will say that I sort of agree with Claude. I think that the committee that is meeting with Steve will be able to adjust their goals as they go along. But you guys can do whatever you want. You guys vote.
Councillor had her hand up.
I can't see. Who's got?
Yeah, it's
Oh, there it is. I see it.
so.
Oh, you're on the panelists too. Sorry.
I also I agree with Councillor Frankie that these goals are can be adjusted with the committee, and many of them are not intended to be completed within the year. The only one that I see that has an obvious financial implication is the first one. So we could just remove that part if desirable. But by tabling and waiting longer, we are going to be disrupting our timeline, which was to have our initial meeting at the end of July, which requires gathering some information before then. So it's probably, we're probably already pushing it into August. So I'd be in favor of moving this forward and adjusting as needed.
Thank you. And I was on the attendees. I was looking for hands there. I didn't come back to panelists. Anyone else got something to say before you guys go to a vote?
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Morris, and Councillor Kleepat.
So, to be clear, we're voting to approve this format with the caveat that the committee has the ability to strike or add components to it at leisure, or would those changes come back to, like, if I'm voting on something, I'm voting on this document, which is he's going to be evaluated on, and not a moving document that's going to happen in some committee later. So I just want to be clear as what the purpose of this voting on this document is if we're going to change it.
I think if the committee has changes, they'd have to come back to you for a vote. Councilor Green?
I think that's right, but as someone said, when you have these particular goals are pretty broad, and they're not intended to be all completed within a year. So it's more of a conversation rather than, oops, didn't make that one, goodbye. And certainly any changes in what we adopt would be presented to council, in my understanding. But the rest of it is, that's the format we're going to use to gather input from the council and others. And I just don't, it's just my opinion. I don't think that we need to wait until after the budget to accept it, but just one vote.
Thank you, Councilor Green. Councilor Klepak?
Yeah, I'm tending to agree with Rebecca and Claude. Eric, what can you give me an example of something in here that is catching your eye? So, because like looking through section B, all that stuff looks pretty good to me. Maybe save bullet point A, like Rebecca had mentioned. But is there something that is particularly concerning you?
It's more the big things. I mean, I agree. The only part of this document that is sort of we may rethink is the goals part. And I think certainly the committee who's performing the evaluation would take into consideration any limitations that we had placed on him. And we could, rather than tabling, we could conversely always come back and amend this document later on. So I'm comfortable with moving forward and voting on this tonight, with the understanding that the committee will be flexible on the goal piece depending on, whether or not we believe Steve has the resources to accomplish what we're asking him.
Yeah, because my concern is just wanting to be able to support Steve as much as we can by giving him, he's been on the job for 6 months now. We want to give him some feedback as soon as we can. Just so that he has that moving forward.
Councilor Green?
Yeah, and I agree. And I just want to add that, I do think it's appropriate to make sure that Steve is comfortable with these goals as part of the process. And what I heard was that you were, but if not, then let's discuss.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm enthusiastic about the goals. I think those are all important things to do. And frankly, those goals are why I took this job. So I'm eager to get started on them and eager to be successful with them. So if things work out differently through this budget process, such that the goals can't be achieved as quickly as I would hope, then I'm hearing that you'll be understanding about that, and that the evaluation will reflect it.
Pretty much what I heard. So you just said I do at the altar, so we're good. Anyone else? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Councilor Morris?
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yeah.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Foss?
I'll pray for you. Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. So moving on to resolution 148, 2021.
A resolution providing for the purchase of a fire department utility terrain vehicle UTV and rescue boat.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion on this one? Councilor Fox? No?
I will throw in that Chief was telling me about the boat itself 2 years ago, and it's 2 years later. So let's get it done.
You just want to go for a cruise. Steve Daly.
I was just going to introduce this for the benefit of the public. There are two pieces of equipment that the fire department wants to retire and replace with more functional and more effective equipment. Chief Essler took me to the station to see what this equipment is, gave me the background on them, and you've seen it all in his report to the council on it. I'm all in favor of doing this. I think it's an important and necessary thing to do.
What are we doing with the old pieces of equipment? Are they trading them in?
No. The UTV is going over to Public Works to be used in parks. And I don't recall what is happening with the boat, but Chief Essler is here and he can tell us.
All right, Patty, can we bring Chief in? And Claude, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Steve if this money that we're spending is left over from the bond that we did for the tower truck back in 2019.
That is correct.
So this is not a new expenditure. This is something that we've been waiting to spend, money we've been waiting to spend.
Yes, and there $31,000 is coming from, excuse me, the most of it is coming from the bond, and then there's a supplement from the equipment purchase item in the fire department budget.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. There's $39,000 left in the 2019 tower truck bond, and after we had a discussion with the council, we determined that the remaining funds had to be used towards vehicle replacement. So $31,000 of that is going to go toward the purchase of a UTV, and approximately $8,000 of that, or the remaining balance, is going to be used toward the purchase of the boat. About $1,000 will come out of the operating budget because the boat will cost somewhere around $9,000 in totality, so we won't have to go out to bid for that. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys might have.
Councilor Foss.
Chief, first of all, I'm surprised that the back end of that boat's still hanging on, but congratulations for making it go 2 more years. Secondly, are you putting a new motor on that boat, or are you just going to transfer it over?
We're going to transfer the motor over. We purchased that about 4 years ago, and
Okay.
It's been extremely reliable, so we're just going to transfer that over.
Okay.
Sean, red and black?
I hope it will be red and black, but it could be gray. So we'll take what we can get.
Any other councilors? Seeing none, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you,
All right,
council,
moving on to-
for your support. Appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
one, Sean.
Yep.
Ordinance 149, 2021, Patty.
An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any questions? This is the solar array. They just sort of changed it a little bit and took it off some of the wetlands. Go ahead, Steve.
Just a comment that Mrs. Burdick, who is the chair of the planning board, is here tonight to answer any questions that you might have about the
Anybody
planning
have-
board's recommendation.
Anybody have questions for Samantha? All right. Patty, seeing none, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yep.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
You're on mute, Claude.
Okay, here we go. Yes.
Council Thomas,
I'm going to school everyone. If you hit the space bar, it'll temporarily unmute you. I don't know if you knew that. Yes.
Thank you. The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Ordinance 150, 2021.
An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion among the councilors first? Claude?
This is the Pleasant Street, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. The historic church building located at 72 Pleasant Street is certainly worthy of conservation. While the efforts by BACAS to conserve this building is laudable, this property sits on a street in a quiet residential zone, 2 blocks from an elementary school, across the street from another church. The current zoning is residential B, a district principally for medium-density residential development. Thus, the existing church is wholly consistent with this medium-density residential character of abutting and other neighbor properties. The current zoning ordinance says, quote, any future development which would interfere with such medium-density residential use or which would not perform a neighborhood function is hereby prohibited, end quote. BACAS has proposed using this property as an event center. To do so, BACAS has requested changing the zoning from residential to commercial A. This is a zone principally for commercial establishments to which public requires frequent and direct access. Commercial A districts are intended to encourage the concentration of commercial development. This is not what the neighbors on Pleasant Street want. In order to mollify some of the objections to this proposed zoning change, which would alter the character of the neighborhood, BACAS has asked for contract zone with restrictions on the use of the property. Under Title 30-A, Chapter 187, Subchapter 3, Section 4352-8B of the Maine Revised Statutes, quote, a zoning ordinance may include provisions for conditional or contract zoning. All rezoning under this subsection must establish rezoned areas that are consistent with the existing and permitted uses within the original zones. However, the proposed zoning changes that BACAS has requested are not consistent with the original zone restrictions. Thus, I support the Planning Board recommendations. They have recommended a contract zone with restrictions on occupancy hours of operation, 7 to 9 p.m., no alcohol, as well as some standard restrictions on screening, signage, and lighting. The Planning Board's recommendations are consistent with state law regarding contract uses.
You're muted, Jay.
Any other councilors?
I'm just thinking we might as well jump right into letting Jennifer have her.
Yeah, let's let. Patty, can we bring in Jen and her group?
Jennifer? Yes.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi, Jennifer. Hear us okay?
I can hear you fine. So I do have a presentation. I'm trying to figure out now how to share it here. Share screen. Oh, excellent. And right here, right? Okay, share. Oh, we're at the very end of it. Okay. And
we're gonna go up to slideshow right there.
oh, slideshow. Sorry. This is new for me. I apologize. And do what?
From the beginning.
Okay. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
So obviously this is Sacred Heart. Tonight we're going to just talk a little bit about these things, the historical retrospective, a site overview, land use, proposed project, and our renovations, the economic impact that this project will have, our recommendation proposed. And we won't go too far into any of this. I know it's, don't have a huge long meeting, so let me just start with it. 1906, the Catholic population as a whole and the needs of the English-speaking immigrants, Lebanese, Irish populations resulted in the new parish. I'll skip to the very first time the church was completed was 1930. That was the first mass was held there in 1908. In 1930, they completed what you see now as the upper floor. Originally, the congregation met in the basement of the building, but from the end, people have stopped using churches in the way that they used to. It is not as much of the population that attends church, and we don't just have this building. We have many buildings that are going to meet the same fate, I predict, in the very near future. So this isn't the last time you will be hearing presentations like this. I predict you will have many buildings in the future come up in front of you. So in 2019, they listed it for sale. They had it up for sale for 1 year with a realtor. After that, I've been hounding them to get this project going. They didn't even really have a listing agent. I went through the same agent they had before. They didn't even relist it. So it's been vacant. As of now, it is completely vacated. And it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done. And there's been a lot of deferred maintenance. So I can show you, I have hundreds of pictures like this from the inspection that we ran on the building. There is a lot of damage here. It's less than we thought, which is good news, because we thought there was a heck of a lot of damage. There's a lot of damage, hundreds and hundreds of pictures that I could show you of this building deteriorating. I did not start out with this proposal of saying, you know what, I want to open an event center. Where could I do that? I looked at that church and said, oh my God, we're going to lose this historic building. What can I do there that would work and save this building? This is one that, doesn't have a lot of pictures. So let me just quickly, we have a lot of improvements to do, exterior, interior. You can see from the prior pictures that it's, the stone facade is damaged. The roof, it's a slate roof, which is great, but there are definitely pieces of slate that are out of place and need to be repaired. And it's a very specialized person that we need to find to do that kind of repair. The furnace, we've been told we could probably get it to hobble along, but I mean, there's a lot of updating that needs to be done there. That furnace is probably at least 40. I'm sure we know the exact date, but it's very old. The parking lot needs repair. The interior, the actual interior of the portion where service was held is beautiful. We will have to do some things, but it's relatively minor compared to the rest of the project. The lower level, we have some real challenges. The floors have asbestos tiles, which we'll have to remediate with hopefully sealing them in with cement. So anyway, it's a big project. That's the whole point of that. Our goal for the property is to make it a beautiful addition to the neighborhood. The neighbors have concerns about light and noise. And so, hedges, fencing, whatever we can do to help with that, and to also beautify the neighborhood. And also in some areas, we want beautiful locations when people have weddings so they can have a place to take pictures. We'll install security cameras. And then Roberto and Tommy, which are This is Roberta. Hello. This is Tommy.
Hey, guys.
So they are my partners in Bacchus, and they want to, and it is what our plan is for them to live in the rectory. So they will be on site. And so we would have security cameras, staff and owners on site. So this is going to be their home. You know, they don't want a lot of noise and trouble and problems either. You know, none of us want that. As I said, my whole purpose of this is to utilize that building in a way that it can be a benefit and a real shining star in the neighborhood. It's not to open an event center. That was not something I ever have wanted. I looked at it first as residential, and it's not really feasible. So this was what I can come up with that will make sense and hopefully pay for itself, turn a profit. Anyway, landscaping, landscape lighting, parking signs, resurfacing the asphalt and the parking spaces. So you can see the uplighting here on this one picture. We just really want the building to be beautiful and to showcase that beautiful building. So our goal is to increase revenue to the local restaurants when we have weddings and events. We'll also bring a lot of business to the local florists, places that rent and sell formal wear, photographers and companies when they send out invitations, party supply stores, and many other businesses will benefit. And we're going to create jobs both directly and indirectly, because we will hire people, but also just by increasing a number of people brought to the area will increase jobs in the area in that way as well. And this will support downtown businesses by bringing visitors to Waterville. So when Claude spoke on the neighborhood and that it's in the middle of a residential zone and 2 blocks from an elementary school, that is sort of correct. So what we're asking for is that you make this property extend the commercial A that it abuts. And what we want then is for you to put a contract zone on top of it after you've made it commercial A. The rectory would stay residential. We'd like the ability to rent out the office building as either just office space or as a low impact business, perhaps a salon. We were talking to a salon owner, which I don't know that that's going forward. I think most likely use is going to be office space. But we really, the liquor license is something we need because if you have a wedding and you tell people it's just beer and wine or no liquor, I won't book any events. So we'd like to make this a really affordable wedding venue that is completely beautiful and stunning, so people can afford to have a nice wedding in a beautiful setting. And anyway, in Waterville. So this is the other part of what when Claude said it is in a residential area. So you can see right here, residential, but you can also see, this is right here. It abuts commercial. This is the entire downtown district. Rite Aid, which is now Walgreens, is right here on this corner. So one corner away is the downtown district. This is not that far off from commercial. It is right here. So it is a neighborhood that is a lot residential, but it's also a lot commercial. This whole corner here is Ware Butler, Hool's, gas station, bank, It's just on the fringe. So we're not talking right here in the middle of residential, which is what already has been done. The Gilman Street School is right smack dab in the middle of residential, and that was zoned commercial, and it does have residents in it, but it also has the gym, which is rented out. So it does have some commercial purposes there. Also, we have information here on the existing zoning districts. I guess I've already gone on that. I did want to say that Claude mentioned this is not what residents want, but I'm not sure that he's told the whole story, because I'm reasonably sure, in fact, I've seen at least one email that he's received that is for this proposal. So I don't know how many he's received, but I know not everyone is against it. And I had spoken with Rebecca earlier today. It was about 4 o'clock, and she was saying, gosh, there are all these residents against this proposal. And we, I didn't, but at around 5 o'clock, so we had to draw up a form for people to say they support the project. We had to put it together, print it out, and these two guys went and kind of canvassed just Pleasant Street, because her concern was, she wanted to make sure there were people who actually live in that neighborhood, not just people who support it throughout Waterville. And within, an hour, they were out for an hour. They had 10 people that signed it. So, I mean, it's not like everyone is against it. I think what you hear are the very vocal voices against this proposal, and the majority of people don't care. And then you have a lot of people who support it. So I do think you have to take that at least into consideration. Do you want to talk about 5-year projects and goals? Okay. 5-year projects and goals. So we want to obviously repair the structure and get gardens and have it beautified as far as the landscaping. As far as the community neighborhood benefits, we want to have music, arts, cultural events, and we want some of those events to include the local youth. I was talking to one
You freeze up for other people?
Yeah.
counselor. There's no, we'd like to have events, not with Lion's Den, but we'd like to open another business that is all about gearing towards kids. So this is also something near and dear to me. Fundraisers for nonprofits. I've been involved in many nonprofits and would love to host events here for that. Community meeting space for neighborhood meetings. Music and arts. We would like to have musicians, performance artists, poets, comics, festivals and fairs, so craft fairs, weddings. Let's see, I'm trying to not say so much, so if you hear silence, that's why. A space where community members who have historical and family ties to Sacred Heart. That one of the important things to us was there are people who've been baptized in Sacred Heart, and they might want to have a wedding there at some point, or there might want to be a celebration of life for somebody who really was a member of that church for years and years and years. And, if we don't have events there, we're not sure that people will have that opportunity to still tie back to their history. And it's close proximity to the concourse and Main Street, which I think has to be brought into consideration that on Pleasant Street, there are 4 large structures, 2 more churches that, who knows what the future will be. Hopefully they stay vibrant and active. But the reality is churches are changing, and those buildings may or may not become available soon. For sure, the Hall School, I don't see it happening where the Hall School stays. as a school for more than maybe 5 years, 6 years, but at some point you'll be having the same discussion regarding the Hall School. And this is a great street where you can say, maybe it could be a mix a little bit of residential and some well thought out places in the same street. And, you know, when Colby has revitalized this downtown, which they're working on, the downtown area is going to expand, and you really have to think about how you want that expansion to happen. And you all are the ones who get to control that. And right now, this is one of the decisions that is going to decide whether or not it expands in this way. So I'd like to just take a walk down memory lane where, you know, we had St. Francis, that was this beautiful church. And, you know, I looked at that for years and I thought, why hasn't somebody taken this and turned it into an event center or something similar? And for years, I just kept thinking somebody's going to do it. And then, you know, the rage happened. The people in the neighborhood were outraged. There were petitions. There were people saying, do not knock this structure down. This is an important historical structure. And yet, you know, they did. And the reason they did is because financially it made sense. They get all this grant money, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with having elderly housing. We need elderly housing. We need these types of buildings. And I just don't think, one, that this neighborhood wants to see, you know, this. So where we're located on that corner, I predict that the church was not actively seeking another buyer by not actually even relisting it. I'm reasonably sure, but I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think by looking at the past, you can see the future, that this is the future of that corner. And that's my biggest concern. There are a lot of people, and you will hear support for this exact, you know, thing to happen. And that, I think, would be the biggest heartbreak for me anyway, and for the city. And you will hear people screaming then, saying, oh, what happened? You know, oh, they're stealing our history. You know, I was standing in the city hall the other day, and people were talking about the center being ripped down and saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe they're just taking our history like this. But nobody came forward with a better project. Colby has the money. They ripped it down. They're going to put up this modern building that looks the way it looks. And it is, you know, I think going to benefit the downtown. But honestly, just a heartbreaking to see the architecture and the choices that they're making as far as the way it looks. But, you know, at least they're doing something. So if this is, you know, if this is what we want for that corner, then so be it. That is the end of my presentation. So any questions? I did send out a packet to all of you, and so I hope you had the chance to review it, and that's what I've got.
Can't hear you, Jay. You're muted.
Thanks, Faust. I'm going to give counselors an opportunity to speak, ask questions. I don't see any panelists' hands. Eric Thomas. Oh, sorry, Rebecca. I just saw your hand too.
Well, let's hear from Eric.
Well, ironically, I actually looked at the St. Francis building years ago, potentially for a similar use. And I think Jennifer's right. You can see, you know, based on what happened the last time around, you have a perfect example sitting right there with St. Francis. I think what's likely to happen, if there's, you know, if this proposal doesn't move forward, you know, perhaps they'll try to sell it a little bit longer, but eventually they're going to, I would guess, do exactly the same thing that they did at St. Francis. And, you know, the neighborhood I would guess they're also not going to be in support of a 30 to 50 unit apartment building going up right in the middle of their residential neighborhood. I was on the planning board when the Gilman Street School project moved forward. I can tell you the vast majority of the people in the neighborhood were opposed to the project. And people are afraid of the unknown, and they tend to cook up worst case scenarios in their head. And that's what they base their reactions on. The Gilman Street School, to my understanding, has been a tremendous success. There's been very few complaints about the Gilman Street School, perhaps a little bit of nuisance with comings and goings, but certainly no major complaints. And it's better than an abandoned building sitting there. And despite Claude's objections, I served on the planning board for 3 years. It's certainly not out of the norm for the city to rezone properties. This does directly abut a commercial zone, so it is not inconsistent totally with what is happening in that area. I do think there are legitimate concerns for the neighbors with the hours of operations and the comings and goings. I also, at one point, ran all of the private events for the State Theater and Port City Music Hall, which included weddings, proms, conferences, and also worked a lot of the concerts there. And weddings can be pretty wild depending on who's getting married and who they invited. So I think it's going to be important that Jennifer has a good plan for how she's going to control what happens inside the building and outside of the building. But I think whatever we do here, it should be tied to Jennifer's ownership of the property, because the last thing we want to do is change the zoning. This doesn't work out for Jennifer, and she sells it to somebody who's not as responsible as she is. And so I think that's probably a risk that Jennifer takes by taking on this project. But I'm certainly in support of trying to find a way to make this project work. And I think ultimately the neighbors will find that most of their fears were unfounded.
Councilor Green.
So I guess I want to say I want to applaud Jennifer for trying to save this church, and I think we all would like to preserve the building. It's certainly a landmark in the city, and you have some great ideas for what you want to do. I'm disappointed that this presentation didn't go before the planning board. And it seems to me that now what we have a situation where we have a recommendation from the planning board, and then we have a competing proposal. So I'm a little bit confused about the order of events here. So I also feel that it's important to have a closing, hours of operation that are clear. And I think you clarified a lot of things in this plan that weren't clear before the planning board. But whatever happens with this proposal, I just find it completely unacceptable to have no fixed hours of operation. And I think that we can do a better job of bringing ideas and discussing them in a manner that allows everyone's ideas to be presented and, work together to find a solution, because that is what we really would be in all of our best interest to do.
Councillor Foss.
Jen Bergeron, you have brought to us another thing that makes my head spin. Usually it's pretty cut and dry for me, but now we are here. You brought up St. Francis. I was one of those people that said, look what they've done. And now I have the opportunity to be in the control seat. And the Sacred Heart Church is one of our landmarks that I don't want to see go anywhere. So whatever we need to do, I like the idea. I know that you and Erica run some phenomenal businesses in the downtown. I have no worries that you will have good controls in place. I agree with Councilor Green that we probably should look at the hours of operation. I think 9 o'clock might not be the time that I would have in my mind. I also understand that an event center that has no alcohol is also a problem. Okay, that's called I don't know what it's called. It's not. It's church. Yeah. Well, no, churches have wine. So just saying. Okay.
I made that point.
That's this is where we are all at the point where we have an opportunity, an investor, to save a landmark and not turn it into something different. Now, I did talk to some residents down there, down around the area. They're not opposed to it. They're more concerned about the noise as far as the traffic coming out of there. And this is a perfect opportunity for all of us to put our collective heads together, figure out how to make the connection between A and B and save a wonderful landmark in the city of Waterville. So, my fuzzy thinking says that we allow the alcohol, we extend the hours till 11 p.m. Okay, if that's acceptable, we're just starting out here, and then some sort of mechanism that would push the traffic leaving down Morrill Ave towards the Ware Butler intersection with North Street, instead of giving them the option to come back towards Gilman and flooding that residential with 120 cars. How many cars you're going to be able to pack in there?
That's our vision for it as well. Exactly what you just said. Down Morrill Ave, Butler.
Were you thinking about putting personnel down on the street to direct that traffic up towards Ware Butler at the end of an event?
At the end of a big enough event that warrants it. Mm-hmm. If we have an event for 50 people, I can't afford to pay somebody $20 an hour.
Where's your trigger?
Anything that's reaching maximum capacity. So anything well over like the 250 mark. Anything that we anticipate, whether if it's booked that way or if someone's selling tickets, if it's hitting close to max, then we need parking lot attendants. We need security.
Okay.
If we have a wedding booked for 100 people, that's about 40 cars.
Okay.
I don't feel a valet or security is necessary. That's not something that we couldn't just handle as people on site managing the event.
Okay. So for now, I'm just going to hold back just to let everybody get their questions answered, Mayor, and then still can't hear you.
Still muted.
Any other councilors? Because I see the chair of the planning board here also. Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to echo a lot of the sentiments that, both Eric and Rick had said. Like, this is a great building. This is a great use for the building. It's not as big as like the Elm, but it has a little bit more characteristic than, the Elm. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to preserve a building and do something that's, fairly unique. I agree that, you definitely, need the alcohol and I think a 9 p.m. cutoff is not appropriate. And yeah, I agree with an 11 o'clock at this point to test it out and see how things go. Maybe the caveat is, with, an event like New Year's Eve or things like that, then obviously we would, push that for that particular day, to allow for those types of events. I like the idea of, being able to revert this back upon any sale from, that Jennifer has, if she sells the place, so that the zoning doesn't follow to the next, establishment. And, I think that, I don't know, we can write some sort of things in here if we have the ability to write some things in there just to kind of limit the use, as an event center for, specific things and not just, branch it out into all of, things that may fit into a traditional, commercial A, property. So my thoughts.
Any of the councilors? Councilor Cleveback?
I have just a couple procedural questions. First of all, how bound by the planning board recommendations is the council, and what is the procedure that we would go through to amend the resolution, or the resolution for the changing of zoning here?
So there isn't one, Tom. Everything, at the end of the day, the buck stops at the council. So you guys could make an amendment to their proposal and then vote on that.
Could somebody a little bit more fully speak to Councilor Frankie's assertion that the proposed zoning changes are not consistent with original zone restrictions? What are the legalities around that assertion? Is that a subjective assessment that the councilor is putting forward, or are there objective criteria that warrant legal investigation?
Councilor Thomas, and then Councilor Frankie.
I mean, I'm certainly not a legal expert on zoning, but I did serve 3 years on the planning board, and he is correct that a contract zone, if you do a contract zone, it's supposed to be, it's taking the underlying zone, and generally it's either placing more limitations on it, or a lot of times what it does is deal with setbacks and things like that. And it's supposed to be consistent with the underlying zone, just either with slight, changes to make it more restrictive or give it more leeway. In this case, since this directly abuts a commercial zone, it's certainly within our purview to rezone it to commercial. It's not as though, the Gilman Street School might be more of an argument because you created a commercial zone that's smack dab in the middle of completely surrounded by residential. In this case, it abuts the commercial zone. So I don't think you're going to have a legal argument that we can't legally change this to the commercial zone. And then once you place it in the commercial zone, that becomes the underlying zone. And so the contract zone has to be consistent with the underlying commercial zone. So it sort of removes the question of whether it's consistent with the underlying zone or not. And yes, the planning board just makes recommendations. They could have said no completely to this project, and if the city council thought it was worthy of moving forward, we could have reconsidered it, whether they said no or not. Ultimately, we have the say. They make recommendations, and then of course when they get to a site plan or anything like that, that's going to go back to the planning board for review, and that's completely within their purview. That's not something that comes back to the city council. The planning board deals with site plans and that sort of stuff.
Anything else? Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask Jen and Bacchus there whether the proposed amendments that were sort of described by Councilor Morris and Foss and Thomas, would these be sufficient for a successful business plan?
So the reason I think it is I definitely am appreciative of them realizing that we would need, nobody wants to go to a wedding without alcohol, that we would need to have the liquor license. I'm wondering if maybe we could limit it to 11 weeknights, allow us the 1 a.m. closing Fridays, Saturdays. I don't even predict, it's going to be often, but our budget on this particular project is tight. And if I have to turn down one event a month, it's going to be a problem for us. We really need to get every event we can there. The other thing is we feel, most events will end before that time anyway. And we feel staying open and being able to serve cocktails, to the people who have attended the event, it actually makes it so that people leave in a more orderly fashion, because some people will say, I'm out of here. I want to go. And so, maybe half of the people will leave at once, but then the rest will say, well, let's let everyone else get out of here. We'll sit, we'll have a few drinks or something. So then they don't all leave at once that way. So I think allowing us to extend the hours, it really is more about controlling the way people exit. And I just, I think that Eric, who books many, many shows, how many bands are we going to be able to find that are going to play until 1 a.m.? Does it happen? Right? So he knows, maybe I get a band that comes in and they're playing, and they get done at 11:30 or something. So it's not necessarily that we will stay open till 1. We'd like the ability, just in case. I don't want to turn people away. This is a very tight project, so I just want to be able to have every event that comes my way that makes sense. I mean, I'd like to make the point that I have Lion's Den Tavern, and we close at 10 p.m. weeknights and 11 p.m. on weekends. The reason we do that is because the downtown is just too wild late at night, and we don't want that business. So if I wanted to open up a nightclub or some crazy place where you can go and make all this noise, I'd just have it there. We don't even want that crowd. So if we don't want it there, I don't want it in this beautiful church that I'm going to spend an awful lot of money renovating. I know the neighbors are very concerned about the hours. I do understand. I get it. I also have to make this financially feasible in order to do this project. And it is a passion project of mine. I mean, these guys loved the rectory, went through, they want to live there. That planning events like this is right up their alley. This just works out perfectly for us. But the more limitations you put on us, and the more we get constrained, the less it makes sense. And I am concerned. I need to be able to make the payments. And one other concern, and I didn't want to bring this up. Somebody else said to me, go ahead, bring it up. Part of my finances, you all have seen me in front of you before. Part of my finances are from the cannabis industry. And the bank is making this particular project follow some really stringent guidelines where I can only use a very small portion of my income in order to, if we need to add, any funds for unexpected expenses, I can only use a really tiny amount of my income. If I use any money that comes from any other source, they're going to call the loan. So the events have to pay the mortgage and for the improvements, and then the maintenance, and then on top of that, I have only a very small income that I can track 100% that is not from cannabis. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I just really wanted to avoid, but I've been told. Most of you know what I do for a living anyway, so you kind of probably will understand that this just, it really hobbles me. Because on other projects that I've had, well, it doesn't matter. It takes a year or two to pay for itself. It doesn't matter. This has to pay for itself because I can't put money into it from my other source. So.
All right, Patty, can I bring in, it looks like Nick Isgro has his hand up and Samantha Burdick. We'll go with Nick first and we'll let Samantha explain the planning board. Go ahead, Eric.
I just, I am in the events business, and I can tell you, I mean, weddings and stuff are one thing, but live entertainment is about the toughest business that you can possibly go into. And when it comes to alcohol, I say this all the time. I spent years trying to convince them of this at the Opera House, that they think they're in the concert business or the play business or the whatever, but what they're really in is the concessions business. And anyone who owns a large entertainment venue, like, you don't make your money selling tickets, you make your money selling alcohol. And so it really is an integral part of trying to run an event center. So I don't see how this place would fly without being able to have a liquor license. It's a crucial part of how you make money and support something like this.
All right, Nick, you get 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes, and that's it. No pointing fingers.
You got it. As I just pointed at you. So, no, thanks so much for the opportunity, everybody. City Council, I'll keep it brief. Anyone that's worked with me, a lot of you have, know that I am a very strong, almost rabid advocate for preservation of our history, our historical buildings, and beautiful architecture. And this project has all of those things. Unfortunately, you know, for better or for worse, what we've seen a lot of great projects over the last decade, but we've also seen a lot of our history torn down one by one by one, most recently on Main Street, which was incredibly disheartening to see that. And we kind of know that there's almost a script you could follow with every one of these. You get a developer, somebody comes in, offers a project, and for one reason or another, if it doesn't go through, and ultimately it sits empty for years, gets torn down. In this particular area, very likely a low-income housing project would go there because that's where all of the federal funds are going to come to go to that project. So I would ask all of you to support this as best as you possibly can to preserve this piece of history. I think it's, and actually I was at the last planning board meeting, and one of the things I noticed, we had a housing development over at Seton that neighbors came out and were mad about. There was another project, I can't remember what the second one was, that neighbors came out and were upset about, and then there was this one. And I think the only project that, you know, it's tough when there's a change in the neighborhood. The only time I think I've ever seen some neighbors not come out and get mad about something because it's unknown, right? I mean, a lot of this just comes from unknown fear. With my house, when they put in elderly housing, because frankly, we all knew in my neighborhood we didn't want them to tear that building down across the street from us because we were more afraid of the unknown that would go there. The last thing I would add is that Jennifer clearly is one of the absolute most responsible business owners in the city. She loves this city. She goes out of her way to be additionally responsible over and above whatever restrictions are put on her in her downtown businesses. Every time I've talked to Jen over the last few years, as I've got to know her real well, her passion for this city, its history, and the people who live here is unmatched. And so that's my thing. I think I came in under 3 minutes, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, but just wanted to say, please do support the project. Thanks.
Muted, Jay.
Spacebar, dude.
I can't wait for in-person meetings. Can we please bring in Samantha Burdick?
We're gonna find a way to mute you in person too, Jay.
Yeah.
I'll bring the duct tape.
Me too.
Hi, Samantha. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can. Hi, Sam.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
So I'll keep it under 3 minutes too, Jay. I just want to bring up a couple things. First of all, some of those other projects that Nick was talking about didn't change the existing use of the neighborhood or the development of the neighborhood, and so it's really irrelevant to bring that up. And honestly, I don't appreciate making it sound like I kind of was discriminating against a specific project. So I just want to clarify that. Second of all, we're actually talking about two parcels here. So the parcel of land that you're saying abuts a commercial property is a totally different parcel than the office building, the rectory, and the church. So technically, the church, the office building, and the rectory do not abut a commercial property in any way. And when we're talking about Ware Butler, I think it's really important to, Ware Butler's literally in my backyard. So believe me, I'd tell you if it was a nuisance. We're talking about a business that's closed by 5, even earlier on the weekends. And they've been there since 1920. So I haven't been on the planning board since 1920, but it would be my assumption that we probably didn't have all of these zoning laws and regulations in place at that point. And I think that that's really important to note. So they probably pre were there before we started the zoning. So, and I kind of heard 2 different things coming from Jen, and some of the things that she's saying are correct. I think that what would be appropriate is for the council to recommend the planning board look at creating an adaptive use ordinance for some of these properties that are going to be coming up. I think that she's correct. We're going to see a lot more of it, and we really have to have some sort of ordinance in place to deal with these things as they arise. So I would recommend that you all pass that along to us at some point. And then I kind of heard 2 different things from Jen. So I heard downtown is growing and it's coming into the neighborhoods. And I also heard downtown is wild. And that's exactly what we don't want in this neighborhood. I spent hours in 2 meetings listening to residents address their concerns. I did not see a presentation from Jen. I did not actually get anything other than no closing times. Personally, I think 10 o'clock and wine and beer is completely acceptable. That if you're having weddings, I've never been to a wedding that didn't have in the contract that you had to be out by a certain time, ever. And I've been in a lot of weddings, let me tell you. So I think that that is very reasonable. I think that if we're talking about 11 a.m. and people hanging around to have cocktails after, we are now talking about this being a bar, not an event center. And that, I think, is the neighbor's largest concern. So I would urge you to think about what type of regulations you would like to see put in place. I would urge you to have give the neighbors an opportunity to speak. I know they spent a lot of time meeting together and discussing what they felt would work for them. They're willing to, I've heard their recommendations. I think that they're very reasonable. They were even, I mean, they had a presentation in the last meeting that they shared, and they were very prepared. So I would urge you to take the time to listen to them as well.
Thank you, Sam. Any other counselors? Counselor Frankie.
I just want to reiterate what I said in my opening statement, that this is the kind of contract zoning that does change the character of the underlying zone, and could open the city to a major lawsuit. Jennifer Bergeron will not have to pay for that lawsuit. The taxpayers in the city will have to pay for it. So I think we should be very careful. That's why I think that the recommendation of the planning board, which was consistent with prior use zoning, is what we should adopt and not amend it.
Thank you, Claude. Any other counselors? Seeing none, I don't see any attendees with their hands up right now. Do you have any motions for amendments, or you guys want to vote on this one now?
I'll call the question. Let's vote on it now.
Mayor, you did have one attendee raise their hand. Linda Dursimonian.
And Jennifer Bergeron has her hand raised.
I'm going to let the attendees in, and then Jen, I'll go to you so that you can respond if you need to.
So Linda Dursimonian. Can you hear us? You're on mute, Linda.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi, this is Sebu Dursimonian, and I thank you for the time that you're allowing us to speak. I have a lot of material gets thrown away. So first of all, I want to express, I live on Morrill Avenue, and during the season, I can all real wrong. When I sit on my porch, I can see the entire church and the parking lot. The issues that's being raised or presented, I feel like there's a lot of mispresentation. For example, I do not appreciate speaking about how we feel as a resident, as if like we are being emotional about it. We have been living in this community for 40 years, and we have a certain lifestyle that people live around here in a quietness, in appreciation of all the things that goes on. And the proposal is the problem for us, not because, so for example, people mentioned that St. Francis, now St. Francis got changed and became a building. People mentioned that there are banks around here. It's true, but banks close at 5 o'clock and everything is done. Like, so we don't have to leave it at 12 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, hearing 100, 120 cars going by people who are very loud, and not for any fault of their reason, for they've been feeling good and so on. So we appreciate all that, but make it sound like she wants to do her business, which is fine, but I feel like doing it on our account without any recognition of what kind of a harm it's going to cause into the neighborhood is a little bit disrespectful and uncalled for, in my opinion. So the concerns that I can express for myself is the noise. And we often talk about the noise that the people will make and so on. I am very concerned about the generators and the air conditioning and so on that constantly going to be humming. And when you are so close as we are stuck with it. Even the people inside of the building will not hear the sounds, but we will. So who's going to take care of all that? Okay, the car. I mean, mentioning the cars. When you have 250 people showing up, where are they going to park their car? I'm not a measurer of like how much space does it take, but I don't know if one can put 125 cars, 100 cars in the parking lot. Where is it going to go? It's going to go in our streets.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I'm going to let some more people in. Patty,
Yeah.
can I get Tiffany Lopes in, and can we set a timer?
Yes. Tiffany, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can. Thank you.
Evening, thank you. My name is Tiffany Lopes. I just prepared something that I wanted to share. I've known Jennifer Bergeron for 20 years. I have yet to meet a Waterville resident more committed to making our city a better place to live in. She's an intrepid entrepreneur with amazing vision and energy. Given the opportunity to purchase the former Sacred Heart Church and its adjacent buildings, and most importantly, the support of our city to allow the creation of a multi-use events center, I know 100% that Jennifer Bergeron would make an incredible improvement, as well as create a location that could add new energy and help to revitalize our city. I live down the street from the former church. I also live down the street from Colby College and Waterville Senior High School. There are occasions throughout the year when we can hear loud music, fireworks, cheers during track meets, football games, and sirens from the fire trucks that come out to create a parade welcoming our high school students and athletes home after winning state championship competitions. With the parents and the friends all honking their car horns, driving through the streets of our neighborhood very late at night. We smile, we feel a sense of community, we might wake up, we might be startled, but we feel a sense of pride and energy in a city that occasionally erupts in celebration and joy. How wonderful to give the former church a new sense of purpose, filled with new varied activities and concerts and wedding receptions. If it became a problem, I know Jennifer would mitigate it. She's looking to be part of the solution, not create problems, to strengthen our city, bring people together, revitalize buildings that have a long history here, and preserve them. So my vote would be to give Jennifer Bergeron support and the votes she needs to support her vision. Her neighbors, including myself, will quickly grow to support and appreciate her efforts, and will most likely get to enjoy this beautiful building once again. How great is it to trust this huge project with a local, longtime resident who lives here, has raised her family here, and is deeply invested here. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go. Thank you, Tiffany. Patty, can we bring Kylie Allen in?
Yes. Kylie, where did Kylie go?
Nope, she disappeared.
I don't see, there she is. Hi, Kylie, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. My internet was a little wonky.
Okay.
I echo everything that Tiffany Lopes says, and have also been in business with Jen. She's extremely responsible, and I think a lot of the things that people feel are the unknowns are technicalities that are trying to hem her up on. The zoning laws said earlier sounds like recommendations from the planning board, but you guys are the ones in the long run that make those decisions. So I feel letting her speak to those unknowns, coming up with a good plan, and trusting and knowing businesses that she's already been a part of in this area speak for itself. So there's unknowns with everything. I kind of feel like I live in that same area of town that Tiffany lives in. And when a train goes by, I have rerouted about 70, 80 cars through my neighborhood that no one's asked the train system to stop doing their business. No one's complained about that over the years. And somehow we figured it out. I haven't seen any neighbors going outside. I know the train goes by at 12, 1 o'clock. And I don't see any neighbors going to the train station and saying anything about that. And that's at a different length of time and a different time of night. So I think I understand people's passion about that, live in that neighborhood and all that stuff. But I think, like Tiffany's saying, there's a opportunity to be able to celebrate these things and come together, let Jen figure it out, as she has done in several businesses in the past.
Thank you, Kylie. Flavia.
Okay, so my question is for Steve Daly. So I'm really trying to understand what is the contract zoning and the legality behind it. So because afterward, council, I forgot. After council said something about the contract zoning, so that kind of really stuck out to me. Like, what is it and what's the legality behind that?
I think you heard an explanation from Councilor Thomas on that earlier. I'm not qualified to answer that question because it's a legal question. I wish I could. One of the bits of advice that I've given to the council is, if in the event you choose to do something other than what the planning board has recommended, that we should refer to legal counsel to make certain that you don't make any errors that undo what you're trying to do.
Right. Do we have the legal counsel? Do we have Lee here?
We are seeking legal counsel to advise the city council on this matter, but we have not obtained one as yet. This happened
Okay.
faster than we were able to do that.
Okay, with that information being said, I don't feel comfortable voting on this today. Would we be able to table this until we get all those legalities all settled in?
You're going to get that. So we're going to get another attorney. This takes 2 votes. So you can get it to move along. And then when the attorney comes at the next meeting, you'll be able to get all of those answers. I mean, nothing you do this vote is going to tie your hands until that second vote. Councilor Green, then Councilor.
But can I follow up?
Yep, go ahead.
So what's the rush to do it today then if we haven't gotten to the legal? Can't we wait another week since we got to do 2 votes on it anyways?
I'll let Councilor Green go, then Councilor Thomas.
Yeah, I would support Councilor Oliveira on that. I don't see the reason why we should go ahead and on the first vote until we've had the legal counsel that we should have.
Eric?
Well, I guess I would make the argument might be clearer for legal counsel if we actually offer the amendments that we want. And then they know exactly what it is that they're digging into. And it does take 2 votes. And Jennifer's been working on this project for a long time. And I mean, she's probably going to be working on it for a lot longer before she actually opens. But where this takes 2 votes, I don't see a reason to not at least we can offer amendments, vote on the amendments, and then we could actually vote on the thing after it's amended, or we could table the amended version too. But I think to see where the council is at, it might make sense for people to offer amendments and then have votes on those amendments to see if it's even something we need to have legal counsel look into anyway.
Councilor Foss.
I'm going to make a motion that we move the 2 parcels to commercial A under a strict contract that upon sale from Ms. Bergeron and Bacchus, that it revert back to the original zoning. Furthermore, adding on that closing the business will be at 11 o'clock on the weekdays and on Saturday nights until midnight. I would also request that traffic going outbound onto Morrill Ave be diverted to the intersection of North Street and Morrill Ave. If somebody doesn't put this on the table and start negotiating, we're going to negotiate all night. So that's my proposed amendment, and then we go from there.
Rick, are you saying Friday and Saturday night?
Just Saturday night. Weekdays, okay. Weekdays would be 11 o'clock.
Steve?
A couple of points. First of all,
is there a second?
I need a second. I'm going to request a second on that.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, Councilor Green has her hand up. Go ahead, Councilor Green.
Excuse me, but Councilor Oliveira proposed to table, I believe.
He didn't make a motion.
Okay. She asked if we could table. I mean,
She can make a motion.
Well, so that's my question. Can there be 2 motions?
Yeah, you can make a motion right now, Rebecca. Would you like to table?
I would like to table.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay, so now I have a motion to table. Patty, can I get a roll call on the motion to table first?
Yeah. This would be to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, I'm gonna interject here. Okay, so procedurally, okay, and I'm not trying to cause a storm here. Councilor Oliveira did not make the proper motion to table. Okay, I did make the proper motion to amend. Okay, it got a proper second. Now I have a table on the now coming on top of. It doesn't.
Gotcha. So give me a second, Rick.
Robert's rules, I don't believe, are being applied here.
So here you go. Here you go, Rick. You made a motion to amend the planning board's recommendation.
Right.
That was seconded. That's on the table at the moment.
Yep.
Flavia made a motion to table. That was seconded. So it's your motion that has been tabled. Your amendment is what's been tabled. That's what we're going to vote on if the mayor calls for a vote. We could continue to discuss the question of tabling your amendment. Or we can go ahead and vote on that.
I think let's just, what I'm going to recommend, Rick, is that you withdraw your amendment. We let Flavia's motion to table move forward. We take a vote on it and see if people want to table.
What we're doing anyway. If there's a motion to table, if it passes, it's tabled, and that motion stays on the table to talk about next time.
Right. Let's just vote on the motion to table, and if it's not tabled, then we can take up amendments.
What are we voting to table? Are we voting to table Rick's motion, or are we voting to table this whole issue?
Well, that's what I'm recommending, is that Rick, let's just have a clean vote on whether people want to table this discussion until the next meeting and get it over.
That's a third motion.
Okay, so I would rescind that, but I want to hear from Bacchus and Jen about the tabling, what that's going to do to their business plan, if that's going to hurt or help, or neither. I would ask that question to Ms. Bergeron.
Go ahead, Jen. Just answer them real quick.
So, well, we have a clock ticking, and it's been set back many times by the planning board, having a few hiccups where the city planner forgot to inform some abutters on the first meeting, and so we were set back several weeks already. And I have a loan that the bank has approved, and that clock started ticking. I think it's been at least 60 days, and there is a limited amount of time. So we are coming close to the end because of the delays that have been happening. So, I mean, I also had, and I don't know now that I even would have time, that July 1st is a cutoff for some grant funding that's out there for the kitchen in the center. And it would be 75% on replacement cost of a lot of that equipment. So that is something that played a factor in our budget. And so it would be really great if we could get this passed and I could apply for the grants, because the deadline is just for the application. And if I have it, if this passes city council, then we can close very quickly and get that grant application in. So, I mean, it definitely impacts me how quickly you all move.
All right.
I'm not rescinding my motion.
I will say that a motion to table is not really discussable. So I sort of have to let that go through. I understand that you made a motion, another one was made on top of it, Rick, but the motion to table has to be heard. So I have to put that forward first. Again, if there's not enough votes to table, then your motion comes up next.
Understood.
So I'm going, go ahead, Clete back.
So I'm clear, we are going to be voting on whether to table Rick's.
Nope, you are tabling this entire discussion right now.
Yes.
Well, that's
Not
incorrect.
just Rick's thing.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect.
Go ahead.
What the motion to table is for what's on the table. What's on the table is Rick's amendment to the planning zone. So that's what we're voting to table.
Okay, so we're voting to table Rick's
Rick
amendment.
just rescinded his motion, so there's nothing to table.
He did
not.
No, I
You did not.
I thought you did. I'm sorry.
So can we get a motion on tabling Rick's amendment?
That's what's on the table now.
On the table.
Let's just vote.
Yeah.
So the motion is to
just
table the amendment.
Just to
Yes.
be clear, if we vote to table Rick's amendment, then the planning board recommendation remains on the table. We would have to have another motion to table to put the planning board's recommendation off to the next meeting.
Okay.
This
Patty.
is what I'm saying, though. There's no point in having two votes. 'Cause
None.
if we table Rick's amendment, there's nothing left to discuss.
Unless somebody else brings it up another amendment.
So let's just vote on whether we're tabling this entire thing to the next meeting or not, is what I'm saying. Rather than voting twice on it.
Yeah.
Patty, can I get a roll call on the amendment, tabling Foss's amendment?
Yes.
That's what I'm putting out.
Council Walker?
Go ahead. Sorry, Patty.
What? No. They want no.
Councilor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
No.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Foss?
No.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor Thomas?
No.
So the vote is 3 in favor and 4 opposed, so it fails.
Okay. So now we can vote on Foss's amendment.
Or discuss.
Well, no,
it.
Discuss more.
Yes.
Thanks, Rick, for your patience.
Can we just clarify again what the amendment was for everybody?
So, move the parcels into commercial A on a contract zone, as a contract zone, if I'm stating that right, to be reverted back to the original zoning as they are today upon sale from Bacchus and Mr. Bergeron, I don't know the entity and all that, to allow the venue to stay open weekdays until 11 p.m., on Saturdays until midnight, and to remove the restriction of no alcohol. They would be allowed to have alcohol at premise.
Right, and I seconded that amendment.
And the other part of the motion, Rick, initially was to divert the traffic to North Street.
Oh, yes. My apologies. Yes, and that added on. Thank you.
Jen, you gotta hold on because I gotta give him a chance to vote on that. Just the amendment.
Just a point of information here.
Yes,
Excuse
sir.
me. Morrill Avenue does not intersect North Street.
Comes up.
Not Morrill. They're talking about the one that runs along the
Middle Street?
That's Middle Street.
Yeah.
Is that Middle Street? My apologies.
Okay.
Middle Street and North Street. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, Morrill is like a half a block up from the parking lot.
Jen, I'm gonna
Thank
give you
you.
one opportunity before I let them go to a vote.
Okay, just we have requested also that the office building, that is an existing office building, that we are allowed to rent it as an office building. The proposal from the planning board came through that I could only use that building personally. So I personally don't need a 9-room office building. Like it's almost 3,000 square feet of office space. I have an office in my house. So.
We can take
All right, Councilor Frankie, then Councilor Foss.
Yes, just to be clear, the planning board recommendation was that the office building remain what it is, the office for the currently the office for the church. It would remain the office for the event center in that case. It's otherwise the planning board recommendation, as I've stated before, is consistent with the original zoning. The more council messes with it, the more likely we are to get sued. That's why the city manager has asked that we get legal counsel before we jump into this water. Look before you leap.
Go ahead, Steve.
That is what I said, and that's what I continue to say. But I believe that Councilor Thomas has provided good advice to the council in that if you vote on amendments tonight, then any legal review of what you intend to do will be on point with your desires. And that way we won't be spinning our wheels or wasting anyone's time trying to consider all the options. If you decide what you want to do, I'll take that to the legal counsel and make sure you don't get in trouble with it.
Mayor, if I may, I'm going to add on Ms. Bergeron's extra on the rental.
Okay.
I'll second.
Can we do that, Patty? Oh,
I'll second
Can I,
with the additional language.
can I get a roll call on that amendment, Patty?
Well, this is all lumped into one.
Okay, good. Appreciate that. So again, Steve, from what I understand is, and I want to make sure that everybody has this, put your amendments in today, all the changes that you want to make. And then before you get your second vote, you will have had an opinion from an attorney on all of your amendments. So
Yes.
that way, if there's any issues, it will come back to you with all of that information.
Yes.
Councilor Frankie. You're on mute, Claude.
Excuse me. I just want to point out that I am an attorney. I did look up the state statute. I looked up the city planning ordinance. And my advice is to look before you leap. Be careful, council. You could end us up putting us on the hook for a very costly lawsuit.
This isn't a final vote. This doesn't bind us to anything.
Right.
Councilor Foss.
Councilor Frankie, I will guarantee you if Waterville's legal counsel comes back and says this is a problem for Waterville and it's going to end us up in a lawsuit, I will pull the cord on this on myself. I don't want to put us in any jeopardy. We got to move. This is one problem that we as a council have observed over the years is we kick the can down the road. Let's get this ball rolling a little bit and see where it leads. And if it works for everybody and it's legal and all that, great. If it's not, then we pull the plug on it and we let it rip.
So, Councilor Morris.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an opportunity here for us to, start this process and, allow, Steve the ability to, seek that legal counsel to make sure that the progress that we're starting here, it is okay. And if it's not, then it allows us the ability to go ahead and tweak anything that we need to in order to fit. I think that if we do nothing and we wait, we're going to have the same discussion. The legal team isn't going to have anything to review, and they're not going to be able to guide us on any things that we want to make. And I think that the uses should come from the council. These amendments should come from the council and not be placed in the legal hands and say, well, you can't do this, but you can do this, this, and this, and then have us, fit to that. I think this is what we're recommending, and allow the legal counsel to take a look and make sure that everything's on the up and up. I think this is a great opportunity to do that, and I don't think that there's any harm and any foul in doing that.
I don't believe so. I'm going to give up Councilor Green.
Yeah, I just want to say that we wouldn't be having this discussion if we had legal representation as tonight, which is what we should have had. So just for the record.
I agree. We had an issue with our legal counsel being in conflict with the other one.
I understand, but
go ahead, Councilor Oliveira.
Yeah, I also agree with Councilor Green is saying. I think I would have been a lot comfortable if we had legal advice. Without legal advice, it's kind of really hard to kind of go through with it.
But we're not giving them anything to provide legal advice on.
Yeah, but we can also give them our recommendation when we speak to them and say, would this fit with this? Well, all the recommendation that Rick Foss just said, we can provide that to the lawyer and see if that fits. If it fits, we'll move on to a vote. But if it doesn't, I don't feel comfortable doing that right now.
But that's what we are doing, though.
Right.
Yeah, but we don't have no legal advice prior to voting on it.
This just means we might actually be able to wrap this up in 2 weeks instead of it taking another month.
My point is we should have had someone here and then we could get the advice now. That's all.
Councilor Green is correct. And I'm sorry, but Bill Lee had a conflict from this, and I know it's hard to find another attorney on short notice, but it really does make it difficult to do these things. And I hope that there's a contingency for something like this in the future, that we don't have to rely solely on one entity, especially when we're coming across a bottleneck like this. Councilor Frankie.
Just to the concerns that Councilor Oliveira, Councilor Green, Councilor Klepek have expressed, if we simply vote no on Rick's amendment, then we're back to just the recommendation of the planning board. And if we want to table that till the next time and get legal counsel, well, we have plenty of time to do that. So that's what I'm going to vote.
Councilor Klepek.
But isn't the rationale that if we get the proposal into an actual, close to a final workable form, like what it is, whatever the planning board sent to us is not going to be what flies, right? Because it's not working for Jen. So if we can get to some sort of compromise that works for her, works for the community, and is something that like a majority of people can agree upon, then whatever that thing is, the lawyer can look at it and say, oh yeah, A, B, C, and D, this works, doesn't work, etc. Am I not understanding that correctly?
No, you are.
Well, the question there is what the lawyer can look at. The lawyer can look at Jennifer's proposal and see if that fits with the statutory restrictions on contract zoning. It's as simple as that. I was able to do it. I don't think this is a rocket science thing. Unfortunately, Ms. Bergeron has not listened to her legal counsel. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't be here.
Eric, and then I'm going to let you guys figure that one out. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm just going to, taking a vote on this amendment tonight puts us in exactly zero legal jeopardy. Zero, because we need to take a second vote. So there is no, the downside of not voting tonight is that the soonest we can have final approval of this is a month from now. The upside to voting on this tonight is it puts it in a form, the lawyer knows what he's looking at, and then we can come back 2 weeks from now, and if he says this is illegal, we get rid of it. And if he says it's legal, we take a second vote and we're all done. So just as a matter of expediency, it puts us at zero legal jeopardy to vote on this amendment.
Councilor Green.
I just want to say he or she. Sorry, but I couldn't let that one go. Thank you.
We're going to vote on Rick's amendment?
You do have hands raised in the attendees.
I'm going to just go to your amendment first, and I've seen the attendees.
10-4.
Okay, shall I call for a roll call vote?
Please do.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
No.
Councilor Klepek?
Yes.
Councilor Green?
No.
Councilor Foss?
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
No.
Councilor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 4 in favor and 3 opposed.
So Rick's motion goes through?
Move as amended.
Second.
Well, before you go to that vote, I'm going to let the planning board chair come back in one more time.
Okay, that is Samantha Burdick. Hi, Samantha.
Hi. So I do just want to clarify, Patty, maybe you can clarify for us too. I believe a zoning change requires 5 votes in favor.
It requires a majority now.
And then 2/3.
And 2/3 at the final vote.
Okay.
After July 1st, it will require a 2/3 vote on both votes because the new charter is going into place.
Oh, okay. So that's why, because I was looking at the new charter and not this one. Okay, thank you for that clarification. My last thing is, I would really just like to reiterate, I understand that you guys have debated this a while and you're trying to make this work for everyone, but I don't feel like you've heard the neighbors' concerns at all. They spent hours in 2 meetings. Our last planning board meeting went until 11 p.m. They spent hours presenting and voicing their opinions. And in those meetings, Jen didn't present what she was looking for, so they had nothing to even negotiate with. And it's very disappointing that no one came into that meeting prepared to talk about what they were expecting. And now the neighbors feel very disenfranchised, like they're not being heard, because they spent 2 nights of their own time trying to talk about this, and they just figured, why bother, because you guys had already made up your minds. So I just want to say it's just really disappointing that Jen couldn't have come to our planning board meeting with those proposals when the neighbors had an opportunity to talk about them, and instead tried to ram it through the council. And so that's very disappointing to me. And it honestly, I'm really upset for the neighbors.
Thank you, Sam. Now, do I have a motion for a vote?
Where did I move that?
Good. Patty, can I get a roll call?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
No.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Sorry, what are we voting on?
moving it as amended for the first vote.
Okay. No.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
No.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 4 in favor and 3 opposed.
All right. Now that we've gotten there, so can I get a roll call on that vote? Patty?
That was the roll call.
Yeah.
But that was to move it as amended. I'm looking for.
That's what we did, Jay, is we moved it as amended. That means that we gave Jennifer the green light to open a bar on Pleasant Street.
Nope, it's not, but I
didn't.
appreciate your cynicism.
That is not what we did.
Right.
No.
No, that's not what we
Poor
did.
communication from yet another.
So it's 4-3. It goes. You're going to take his amendment to the lawyer, so that lawyer is here at the next meeting, Steve. I heard the silent yes.
You're muted, Steve. Sorry.
Thanks, Patty. Yes, I will be after an attorney first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, I want to reiterate Rebecca's point. I know it was short notice, but we really do have to have some sort of contingency for when this happens in the future. Any council updates? Looks like that's the end of the agenda.
I guess I got one.
Councilor Faust and Councilor Klepak.
I would like to take the second that about 8 weeks ago, this council said that we were proud of our professionalism, no matter what our differences was. And I'd like to remind the council and extend that onto other members outside of this council, that no matter what, that we remain respectful to the people we're approaching, no matter what. That we're better than other places.
Thank you, Rick. Councilor Klepak.
Well, I just wanted to say that one of the issues that I got interested in and kind of compelled me to get on the council was making the North Street overpass a little bit more safe with pedestrians, that entire road. And so last Tuesday, I met with city engineer Andy and Mina, and we looked at the structure, the abutments there, and kind of came up with a little bit of a plan to see if it is possible for us to have a pedestrian throughway through there. And Andy did have some good ideas and is exploring who the right contacts might be at DOT and at the train company to move forward on something like that. So anyways, my point is that I've been doing work on that project, and I'll keep you updated as it progresses.
Thank you, Councilor Kleepak. Anybody else? I don't have none. Rick, this is your favorite time.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Did you want to do community notes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about that. I did. It was getting late. Let me see if there's anybody with their hands up for community notes. You can bring Nick in for community notes.
Okay. Nick, can you hear us okay? You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks so much. I just want to say that as a citizen, I think it's unfortunate that the chair of the planning board just came on here and started personally attacking someone and completely mischaracterizing the meeting that I sat through. Thanks so much.
All right. And now I'll take that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.